welcome to Texas Football Talk. I'm your host, 𝗟𝗓𝗏𝗕, once again joined by my brother Clint in this episode, the 2022 tight end preview. How you doing, brother?
Hey, pretty good. I just want to, before we start today, I just kind of want to put out some numbers that have kind of happened with the channel over the last, really about a month and a half. Over the month and a half, we've kind of, I think, gained 366 subscribers, which is a big number over a month and a half, after me and Jeremy kind of took some time off. Another thing is I think the biggest number for us is we've seen about a 5 to 6 minute increase in watch time on our videos, which means a lot. It means that either people want to listen to us or we're putting out really good content. And I know me and Jeremy are kind of, we're not going to say racing towards that 4,000, but we're really trying to get to that 4,000 subscriber before the beginning of the season. And I think as it sits today, I think we're right at around 3,668, I believe, as we're doing this show on August 6th. So, hey, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please hit that subscribe button. Once we finish this and you have an opportunity to watch it, please hit that like button as well. So without further ado, let's get into the tight ends, man. I know this is probably the second to last offensive position we've done, right? And I think we're saving the quarterbacks for a little bit further into fall camp. So tight ends, I think, is going to go from really, I'm not going to say a liability. I think liability is a terrible word. But I think it's going to be more a focal point in this offense based on the athletic ability from both your in-line tight end and your tight end and Jahleel Billingsley that you'll be able to push out as into the slot and a little bit further out. Your thoughts on this tight end room as we get started in this show?
No, like you said, there's playmakers in this group. Ja'Tavion Sanders was a wide receiver at Denton Ryan, who has plenty of highlights that everybody have seen, one-handed catches going up over folks. Got to see a little bit of his potential in the spring game, caught a ball over the middle, busted some tackles, got the ball down to 2-yard line, ultimately fumbled, but you could see his athletic ability. He really wants to play tight end because in my mind, he could have started or had significant playing time as a freshman, maybe not started, but had significant playing time at defensive end as a freshman. So he really wants to play offense. That's where he wants to be. And a guy like Jahleel Billingsley comes from Alabama, played 36 games over there, was very productive. Alabama utilized him more as a flex receiver more than a tight end. So like you said, you got a guy that's in line in Ja'Tavion Sanders and a guy that's going to be split out in Jahleel Billingsley to take advantage of linebackers and safeties. But what you'll find in watching the tape of Jahleel Billingsley is he's a willing blocker. They don't put him up against defensive ends. He's asked to do what he does, and that's block linebackers and safeties. And he's a finesse blocker. He's not going to knock anybody on their tail, but he's going to get in the way and make sure they don't make the tackle. So I'm really interested in seeing this group because, like you say, you got a guy that's experienced, been in a program, won a national championship with Alabama, who transferred in, and Ja'Tavion Sanders, a guy who was a finalist for Mr. Football in his senior year at Denton Ryan, and a guy we've been waiting to see touch the field. And then really going to talk about 4 guys here, 5 guys: Gunnar, Helm, Juan Davis. Again, Gunnar Helm's going to be an inline, backing up Ja'Tavion Sanders. Juan Davis is going to be a flex, backing up Jahleel Billingsley as we see it. And then you got a guy who's been in the program for a while, hasn't seen much playing time at Brayden Liebrock. So video is really talking about 5 guys. But I think it's an improved group. I think it's a more athletic group, not as experienced, of course, but again, that's what's going to happen in college football when guys are going out every 4 years and new guys are coming in. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so Sarkisian always talked about this second most important position on the offense, on his offense outside of the quarterback, and so that kind of tells you exactly, the coaching that they're going to get there during fall leading into September 3rd against University of Louisiana Monroe. I think the biggest thing is kind of understanding what Steve Sarkisian wants to see in his tight ends. And there's kind of 2 tight ends in Steve Sarkisian's offense. One that's going to be a designated blocker, and then you have another one that's going to be primarily a skilled receiver. But I think what you have here is you have two tight ends, one that may be an inline blocker, or really 2 that may be inline blocker in both, Ja'Tavion Sanders and Gunnar Helm, that could be just as athletic as, a Juan Davis and a Jahleel Billingsley that gives you matchup nightmares against really safeties and linebackers. When I went back and watched, I've been watching some Alabama tape, to prepare for, a pregame with Alabama. And I actually went back and watched Florida, Ole Miss, and Miami last night. Those kind of games I've started with, and I'll kind of go through their seasons, kind of look at what's going on. And like you were talking about Jahleel Billingsley, he is a willing blocker. And I think sometimes people take that away from him. And if you go look at his NFL draft projection, it's one of the things they actually give him a plus for is his willingness to block from a wide receiver position. But I think what you see in Jahleel Billingsley is his ability to take advantage of both linebackers and safety and coverage. They line him up outside, put him on a linebacker, put him on a safety, and his length alone allows him to go up and fight for contested balls. I know he made a beautiful catch towards the end zone, got one foot tapped in against Florida last year when he was playing at Alabama. But I think he's going to be a real receiving threat in this offense this year, combined with the wide receivers that you currently have. Your thoughts on Jahleel Billingsley, man, and his athletic ability to be a wide receiver, really a fourth wide receiver on the field.
That's exactly how Gary Danielson, the guys that called the games on CBS, described him when I was watching Ole Miss and Alabama. It's not as a tight end, but he's basically Isaiah Nair in the slot, right? 6'3", 215 pounds, 219 pounds in the slot, there to, like I said, take advantage of linebackers and safeties. Whenever Texas has to go to a jumbo package, you probably won't see Jahleel Billingsley on the field. When they're second and short, third and short, fourth down, going for fourth down and 2 or 3. What you're more than likely going to see is a backup tackle or guard put on an 85 number, similar to what Alabama likes to do, and that'll be your 2 tight end set with Ja'Tavion Sanders on the other side, more than likely. So he won't be asked to do a lot of short yardage blocking against defensive ends, but like you said, he's athletic. He makes plays. Ja'Tavion Sanders makes the same kind of plays, like you talked about, jumping up in the air and tiptoeing, in the end zone. He's just slightly bigger than Jahleel Billingsley. So, like I said, I think you got, regardless of height, weight demographics, I think you got 2 guys that can make plays on the ball, receive the football, and make plays in open space in this tight end room. The two guys we suspect will go out there first in Billingsley and Sanders. But like you said, he's a finesse blocker. He does his job. And like I said, when you see 2 tight end sets, if you need jumbo, you're probably not going to see him on the field.
Yeah. So like you talked about Ja'Tavion Sanders, obviously if you go back and watch his high school film, he played more wide receiver than he did tight end. So you see that. And then you go back and watch the spring game and what he was able to do in the spring game, catching balls, great hands, by the way, great hands. He snatched that ball out of the air. Wish he would have finished in the end zone. Hard to bring down too, man. One guy's not going to bring him down. So it's if he shows the hands that he has in the spring game and he has the ability to get an open space, he's not going to be a guy that one linebacker is going to bring him down or a safety is going to bring him down just purely based on his size. And I think you've seen how, really Steve Sarkisian wants to use these tight ends. But if you go back and look at the spring game, I think they have multiple catches apiece,
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my biggest, 11 personnel versus 12 personnel sets is obviously going to be dependent on matchups, what defenses you're playing. Do you think you're going to have to protect your left tackle? I think it's another piece, how you want to line those up, 11 and 12 personnel. But I know you had talked about, 23 personnel where we may not have tight ends, at all on the field. But your thoughts on 11 personnel and 12 personnel sets, and how they're going to be utilized versus probably what the defense is going to give you and how you want to exploit maybe some linebackers and safeties with those sets.
To me, it's pretty easy. It goes down in distance for Texas, right? 11 personnel with Jahleel Billingsley is, if I'm looking at it as a defensive coordinator, it's more than likely a pass play. If it's 11 personnel and Ja'Tavion Sanders is on the field as the tight end, then it's more than likely going to be a running play. Not that they can't do both. I just described, Jahleel Billingsley on the field, split him out, get a linebacker on him. He will make that play. Again, he won't knock anybody on their tail, but he'll get in their way and they won't make the tackle. Ja'Tavion Sanders is a little bit different. He's 260 pounds, probably could, muscle up with defensive ends because, again, your edges these days are 225 pounds to 260 pounds, so right about that same size. But if I'm 11 personnel and it's primarily run, I'm probably going to have Ja'Tavion Sanders on the field for me. And if it's primarily a pass, it's probably going to be Jahleel Billingsley. Now, in 12 personnel, again, I think you'll never see both of them in line at snap. Now they might line up on the line of scrimmage, and then Jahleel Billingsley will flex out in order to get the defense to move to give Quinn Ewers a pre-snap read. But 12 personnel is generally you're going to have Jahleel Billingsley 4 or 5 yards off the left side of the tackle if it's on the left side, and the right side of the tackle if it's on the right side. And Jatavian will have his hand on the ground. Made motion to the strong side and put both of them on the side on the same side of the field sometimes, like I say, just to give the quarterback a pre-snap read. Because, again, there's a lot of motion in Steve Sarkisian's offense for that purpose, to find out what the back seven is doing and to try to get favorable matchups on the front. But that's the way I see it. And like you said, when you described Alabama versus Florida and how Florida manipulated Alabama, 23 personnel with Roschon Bijan in the backfield, with Jordan Whittington in the slot, Isaiah Nair and Isaiah Worthy outside, or Xavier Worthy outside, would be my personnel package to go against Alabama. But this is not a personnel package show. It's a tight end show. So that's how I see 11 and 12 personnel with these two particular tight ends. And I think the same thing, if you go with that second team or that reserves, I think you got the same thing is you're going to see Gunnar Helm on run plays, Juan Davis on pass plays, and they're going to line up exactly how I described Billingsley and Sanders.
Yeah, because they're all the same size. Gunnar Helm has everybody by 1 inch, but for the most part, they're all 6'4". And if you're looking at Gunnar Helm, you're talking about a guy that came out of Colorado that has shown, in spots what he can provide at the tight end position. And I know the coaches love him. I know Juan Davis, you're talking about 6'4", 219. And again, if you're looking at Jahleel Billingsley's numbers, he's exactly that, 6'4", 219. So I think you got exactly what they want. And they have, Juan Davis is back up to Billingsley, and you have Helm that's probably you're going to see some time with Jatavian Sanders there. One thing that you're not going to see is a lot of rotation from the tight end spot. Steve Sarkisian, in most times, is not going to rotate the tight ends out a lot. So we'll kind of see how many snaps they get a piece. You hope you get Juan Davis in the game, and you hope you get Gunnar Helm in some game time to allow these guys to have real game time. And I think they have the ability to be, obviously Jatavian Sanders is a 5-star guy, tight end, and Jahleel Billingsley, who's played in the SEC, that's got 36 games under his belt. Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm probably not at that level, but I don't think there's a lot of fall off once you get to those second tight ends in this offense, which I think what you haven't had at the University of Texas in a long time is, I think you have the ability to have a really good tight end room. I think just the experience alone is just not there with Jatavian Sanders and Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm.
I'm glad you feel like that, because this is a position that you don't have a whole lot of depth. And when I say depth, I just mean depth in numbers, not talent. Mm-hmm. So if Jatavian Sanders was to sprain an ankle or something very minor, then Gunnar Helm's going to have to come in there and produce. Same thing with Jahleel Billingsley. If something happens to him, then Juan Davis has to go out there and produce, because again, we got 5 scholarship tight ends, so there's not a whole lot of room for that. So you hope they use the fall, and I think like that's what Steve Sarkisian means when he says reps and not the too deep are my focus. I want the second team guys getting as many reps as the first team guys. I don't care how many practice fields I have to utilize. I don't care how much space I have to utilize. Repetitions, the system, understanding your responsibilities are what I'm trying to get out of the first, 10 practices of fall camp is repetitions. That way, when in the middle of November, if Jahleel Billingsley has to come out of the game and Juan Davis hasn't had a whole lot of game reps, at least he can fall back on those practice reps that he got in the fall and all the installation and come out there and produce. Like you said, it's not a position where you're going to see a lot of in-game transitions between the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4. You're going to have primarily Jahleel Billingsley and Jatavian Sanders out there. So you'd like to have several games that get out of reach, to get these, like I say, Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis a little bit of playing time, against other teams. But I think that's the purpose for this first 2 weeks of fall and the repetitions, because you don't want 90% of the snaps to go to your first teamers, then your second team and third teamers just sitting on the bench, not getting any action. And I think that's the purpose for it.
Think about this though. And obviously you hope that you stay injury free. It's difficult to go through a season and stay injury free. And I hope that didn't bother anybody, me knocking on my wood here. in on the desk. But you got a guy like Troy Murray, and you got a guy like Nair that are similar size as Jahleel Billingsley. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where I think Steve Sarkisian has the flexibility that if Billingsley needs to take play off, and he don't think that Juan Davis is prepared, you always have a Troy Murray that comes in. It's the same size as Jahleel Billingsley. They probably can give you the same. Get in front of a defensive back or a linebacker to in space to get a block. So I think the ability of your wide receiver room and the depth of your wide receiver room allows you to be able to play with your tight ends a little bit more than what you would when it comes to that depth, because of the sheer size of some of your guys that may not see the field as much on the opposite side of the ball from the wide receiver position. Your depth is there.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. You may see a position, not necessarily a position switch, but some cross training by Troy O'Meary, who, like you said, may not crack the two deep at wide receiver, but he can benefit you in the wide receiver room with his skill set. So yeah, you might see a little bit of that cross training. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. But really, really excited. Like I said, I think the experience may not be there, but I think you got somebody and I think Jahleel Billingsley was named, second team all preseason by Athlon Sports. You got, Ja'Tavion Sanders that's on the Mackey watch list. We know that list is huge. We hear it all the time. We know that list is huge when it comes out. I think they pick half the tight ends in the country out of the 130 that you could currently choose at the FBS level. But to be on that list is something important. I think we have the talent from a tight end position to do really, really well. That's going to be able to provide us, some matchups in games that we may not have seen over the last couple of years, and what we had in Brewer and help me out, trying to think here, Jared Wiley.
Jared Wiley.
Which I don't think we took advantage of his size at 6'7", and he's now transferred out of the program. I don't want to forget about Brayden Liebrock either, man. 6'4", 232 pounds. He was a 4-star tight end coming out of Arizona, out of Chandler, Arizona. Played in 7 games. Been with the program since 2019. Obviously was injured, in 2021, didn't play at all. But he's played 7 games has 2 receptions for 11 yards. So it's been minimal what he's been able to do. But I think he provides you just a little bit more depth in that tight end room outside of those 4 guys. We'll kind of see where Brayden Liebrock's, how much game time or how many snaps that Brayden Liebrock gets. But I definitely don't want to forget about him. He's a talented tight end coming out of high school. I think injuries have got the best of him. I think scheme from another coaching staff probably got the best of him as well. But now that we've got a coach that loves to use the tight ends, that thinks it's the most important, second most important position on his offense, we'll kind of see where Brayden Liebrock goes there as well.
And Liebrock, he's the tweener, right? You got the 2 tight ends that are 220, and you got the 2 tight ends that are 260, and he's right there at 235. So he's kind of the tweener of the group. And like you said, he brings experience in the program, not necessarily experience on the field. Probably provide some leadership for some of these younger guys and counsel and reiterating stuff they see in practice, because he's been through several systems and probably understands the playbook really, really well. But yeah, I'm just excited, like every position on this football team that we previewed and are going to preview, just excited to see them play. Because like you said, Jared Wiley and K. Brewer are gone. This is a brand new tight end room. I'm just ready to see them get out there and produce and play in ball games.
Yeah, so you talked about previews, man. So let's kind of just walk them through some previews we're going to do, sooner than later. I think Jeremy, texted me this morning, and we've broken down the next 3 previews, and it's kind of broken down between defensive line, right? The edge will have their own show. So the defensive line will have their own show. Edge will have their own show. And then linebackers will have their own show as well, because just sheer numbers and kind of walking through those numbers and what we expect. Those will be our next three preview shows, right, Jeremy? I think.
That's correct. Yeah, there's about 8 or 9 at each position, and that's how Texas classifies them on their roster, is either defensive lineman, edge, or linebacker. So that's how we're going to break them down when we preview them. And like I said, there's 8 or 9 guys in each personnel group, so it'll be a good show.
Yeah. All right, man. Hope you enjoyed this tight end preview. You can find us on Facebook at Texas Football Talk. You can find us on Instagram at Texas Football Talk and on Twitter at TX Football Talk. We appreciate you listening. As always, please hit that subscribe button if you have not done so yet, and hit that like button. We appreciate you as always, and y'all have a wonderful day.
Hook 'em.